Hello and welcome to Surrey Police Live, a weekly show where you, the public, learn more about the work of Surrey Police. I'm PC Maria Edwards, the Surrey Police Force Advisor for Child Vulnerability, working on the Public Protection Support Unit at our police headquarters. In today's episode of Surrey Police Live, we're going to be learning more about some of the issues and challenges faced by our children and young people today, and what you, as perhaps a parent, carer, family member, relative, friend, can do to help protect and safeguard them. Joining me today on the panel is...
Hi, my name's Emmy Harris. I'm a sergeant on the prevention and problem solving team, and I look after a team of 8 civilian members of staff who are antisocial behaviour officers, and also have oversight of our 22 youth engagement officers, and there are 22 of those per borough.
Thank you.
I'm PC Caroline Barnes. I'm the Youth Engagement Officer for the Borough of Spelthorne. I work with young people who have come to the attention of police, perhaps for their involvement in criminality or antisocial behaviour, as well as supporting young people who perhaps are at risk of exploitation or are currently being exploited at this time.
Hello, I'm Dave Campbell. I'm one of 3 drugs liaison officers for Surrey Police, and part of our role is to provide expert opinion to the courts in relation to various drug aspects, and also to provide drug awareness training to officers, staff and partner agencies.
Thank you, Dave. As always, if you have a question at any time during the session today, then pop your question in the chat. We're going to be focusing on child exploitation, how children can be groomed, forced, coerced into sexual exploitation and criminal exploitation. We're going to start by showing a super short video on how a child was trapped into exploitation and the possible consequences of this.
Choose whichever one you want.
You think I'll get you those for free? No, mate, I pitied you and you owe me.
You'll do as I say or you're dead!
Go bank this. Nothing comes for free, mate.
Sadly, what you just saw there is some young people's reality. We know it's happening here in lovely, leafy, rural Surrey. Children are being groomed into drug dealing, into committing crime, into sexual exploitation. They are victims. This is happening through no fault of their own. The perpetrators know how to target these vulnerable children. So we know it's happening here in Surrey. What do you think are some of the issues that children and young people are facing? What are some of the trends that we're seeing in Surrey at the moment?
I think at the moment we see a lot of inappropriate use of social media, and that leads for these young people to then get targeted, sucked into this world of criminality, and they don't realise it. They think they're just using social media, they think it's fun, they think they're safe in their bedroom, when really it's a scary world out there for them, and they don't realise the risks that they're putting themselves at.
No, I tend to agree. A lot of it, like I say, comes down to just about how they're treating each other, be it online or face to face. It comes down to that kindness and bullying, whether it's, like say, online or in the school or at home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what are some of the sort of challenges, do you think? You've talked about some of the online stuff. What do you think is happening online with some of these children? What do you think that they're doing online?
I think one of the issues we have in relation to the drug world is something that's called edibles, which are being obtained online through various websites. And these are purporting to be substances containing drugs, but also they are being produced and made to look like sweets, a lot of them, and it's causing an issue in relation to the packaging and also the substances that are being involved in it.
And how easy is it for children to purchase these online?
It's as easy as purchasing anything online. Unfortunately, it's it's the world we live in now. Luckily, I think, hopefully, that not many retail premises that we know of are involved in this sort of thing, but it's very difficult to manage control online because these websites or whatever can be in this country or another country.
I've been hearing Snapchat they sometimes use, and they can really
Yeah,
quickly, within a few clicks, buy drugs online.
Yeah, quite simply. Yeah, probably far easier than I know how to.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's the main worry I have in relation to it is they make it look like that they are legitimate, perfectly correct sweets, and the packaging and the whole thing. I mean, we talk about things called gummy bears or nerd ropes and things like that. They are made to look like normal sweets where any young adult could consume. And unfortunately, these things sometimes will contain substances that are illegal.
Okay, thank you. And we've talked a bit about exploitation. So how do you think children get sort of drawn into that criminal exploitation?
They're encouraged and lied to and sold this perfect world and told that they can have all the things that their mums and dads won't let them have. And the young people just feel confident and feel loved and cared for, and mum and dad at home won't let me do this, they won't let me do that, but this person who's an adult as well will. And then it just sucks them into that world, and then they don't realise it, but they're under the control of these perpetrators.
I think the opportunity as well to have a lot more than what they've got. Like say, it's sometimes too good to be true, and that's because it is, and there's always a price to pay for any of these items that they are in receipt of, and that's what's quite sad.
Yeah. And they can earn money very quickly, can't they? Especially if they're perhaps groomed into drug dealing, that they're very quickly earning, hundreds of pounds.
Yeah.
And it can be quite tempting, if they're not doing particularly well at school or opportunities aren't readily available for them themselves to get drawn into this quick fix, let's make some money, and where they're very much living in the moment. They're not thinking about their longer term future and the impact it will have not just on them but their families and maybe longer term career opportunities.
It's very enticing. The short video we saw there, it's very enticing for people to be offered things that aren't available to them. I mean, trainers, top quality trainers and phones and things like that, not realising that they are not nothing. You don't get anything for free here. Is they're offered and they're given them, and then they're in their clutches and to control them and manage them.
I think with children as well, online is to an extent a false reality, and they very much believe and seek that approval and clarification and validation through what they're seeing online, through certain online platforms, Instagram for example, where they're not seeking advice from someone that's sensible perhaps, like local to them, a family or a member or a friend. They're seeking that validation through online, and that seems to be what everybody has. Everyone has these trainers, everyone has the latest phone, everyone has the nicest clothes, so how can I get that for myself?
And it's almost, they just believe that who they're talking to is who they are. And it's just about getting that message across of actually you have absolutely no idea who's sat behind that account, and whether they really are dealing those drugs or whether they're just taking you to a house and you're putting yourself at so much more risk. So it's about understanding what your children are doing online, observing their accounts, reviewing them. The kids sometimes will think that you're snooping on them, but you're not snooping on them to check what they're sending. It's about just reassuring yourself that what people are sending to them is appropriate, and they're not at any further risk.
I think as well is learning from the children. They're on these online platforms that they weren't available when I was at school, so you have to learn with them. They're picking things up a lot quicker than we are, so it's trying to be part of that journey with them and understand a little bit more about their accounts, their settings, and what you can do to understand it yourself.
And perhaps letting them have a space in the family home where they use these devices, so that you're aware of what they're doing, and perhaps conversations that they're having. They're not perhaps up in their bedroom, they're actually downstairs in the family environment, so that you can hear some of what's going on.
And it's about setting those ground rules early on. Teenagers are tricky things.
Yes.
And if you don't have those ground rules from when they get their phone, then it's going to be a bit of a battle to claw it back. It's not impossible, but it will be a bit harder. But it's simple things like they don't have their phone at bedtime. When they go to bed, the phone goes in mum and dad's room. Because you don't know what you're basically allowing strangers into their bedroom.
Yeah, absolutely. You wouldn't let your child go off with a stranger,
No.
would you? Or get in the car with a stranger, but as soon as you give them a phone, they could
Yeah.
be talking to strangers in their own bedroom.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I've been doing this job for so long. I was so worried about my child when she got a phone that we said to her as soon as she got one, you know, it had to stay downstairs because she got one just about to go to secondary school, so when she was 11, and we were like, when you come in, the phone sort of goes in the basket downstairs. You can obviously use it, but it's downstairs because I didn't want her to have it up in her bedroom at that age, because like you say, they're talking to anyone up in their bedroom. But like you said, it's about setting those boundaries early on, because otherwise it's difficult once they've already allowed to have it upstairs to then you know claw back and change that.
But it's also about remembering it's not only phones nowadays, it's your tablets, it's the Xbox, the PlayStation. All of these devices allow you to communicate with strangers. So it's about keeping an eye on those devices and the security settings there as well.
I think going on from the security settings, that's one thing. If they have got their phone and devices in their bedroom, because like say, in an ideal world, it's great, they leave them downstairs, but in reality that doesn't happen. You know, you slip into a pattern of where the phone or device goes up into the bedroom or out of your sight, and that there still is with phones and devices ability to do setting controls. There's apps that you can download or
To
just
monitor.
within the device for it to shut down, to have that sleep mode, you know, so at the time that you mutually agree, perhaps if that's the conversation you can have, or as a parent that you decide, and as a contract payer that you want it from 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, whatever time, to be off, and that phone will shut down. So whilst they might have it with them, perhaps on charge because that's what's convenient, they still won't have access. Two ways to
It's getting the
call
balance
out.
right as well.
Absolutely.
There are lots of good things on this technology side of things.
Absolutely.
And they talk to their friends and whatever, but it's the balance of that sort of side of it and then going into this more darker side of some of the websites and whatever. Be very careful.
Yeah, absolutely. And having those open conversations you know, with your children, and letting them be teenagers, because like you said, when they're young you might be able to control the phone and the devices a bit more, but as they get older and get into older teenage years, then obviously you need to sort of let them have some responsibility as well, and some trust. So it's about having those open conversations with your child, and not having, you know, sit down scary conversations, but I think just perhaps general chit chat about things, and perhaps things they might have seen online that worried them, you know, and what they can do to seek help.
And one of the problems with online is can potentially be a lot of misinformation out there, and people are getting misinformed about certain things, whereas factually you've got to look at it as a whole and identify what the facts are, as opposed to what is somebody else just rumour mongering.
It is hard, even for us, you know, to try and myth bust some of the stuff when children come and ask us questions. You'll search up online, and even some of the resources that we found conflicting. So it's making sure that you go to that source that you trust, and like I say, just talking amongst like colleagues or friends.
Yeah, but you've got to bear in mind that if it's open source, that means anybody can put anything on there. It doesn't mean it means true. It just means they've got access to do that. So.
Something else to consider is that children, teenagers in particular, may not want to talk to mum and dad, and they need that ability to, or you need to, as a parent, facilitate them to have a trusted adult that they can talk to outside of the home, be it a family member or a friend, just so that they can have that safe person to share that information, who can then filter it back in a delicate way to parents, and then an action plan can be put in place to try and safeguard your child. But it could be a teacher, it could be a scout leader, guide leader, anything like that, football coach. But it's just about giving them that information that it doesn't always have to be mum and dad.
Sure. So we've talked a lot about some of the online concerns that we have, and we mentioned earlier about how easy it is to access drugs online, and how some of them can be seen to be packaged as though they're sort of perfectly legitimate sweets and edibles, which you know can be cannabis sweets, and obviously very dangerous and harmful and illegal. And we've talked about exploitation in Surrey. So exploitation can be either criminal exploitation or sexual exploitation. Exploitation occurs when a individual or a group, so either one person or a group of people, coerce, manipulate, deceive, force a child under 18 into either sexual activity or criminal activity. That criminal activity could be drug dealing. You might have heard it be called to as county lines or referred to as county lines, which is a dedicated mobile network used to distribute drugs. And sometimes drug dealers will groom children to deal those drugs. They will see children as easy to control, as cheap labour. And so they're particularly attractive to drug dealers to be the ones that are out on the street doing those deals. And we're now going to see a short video of a exploiter talking about how he grooms children into drug dealing.
I have to say though, thank you for agreeing to talk to me. I know you're from the streets, and I know the streets is all about identity and not being seen. But I felt it was important that I talk to you because you're an older on the street and you know what's going on with the young people. And I think that people need to get that perspective. So they need to know what the olders think about the youngers. Because my generation, we think something completely different about young people. And you're closer to them than me, although you're slightly older. And so you're still on the street.
I ain't on the street, fam. These youths are on the street for man. These youths are on the street moving the food for me, fam. I'm not on road, fam. I'm the man they come to. I don't need to be on road. What do I need to be on road for, fam?
So you get the young people to do.
Of course, fam. All it takes is a bit of encouragement. You get me? No youth wants no £7.20 hour a job, fam. You get me? When I show them this, you get me? Like, that's all it takes, fam.
How long does it take to make that kind of money?
Couple days, my G. Couple days. And man, them are slaving away for a fucking paycheck when they can get this in a couple days, fam. Think about it, blood.
Yeah, but the young people see money.
Yeah.
And I guess you guys kind of glamorize that money.
Of course we glamorize it because we get it. Man gets dough out here. You get me?
So where do the young people fit into all of this?
They're easy targets, fam. You get me? They're easy targets. They don't want to be working no job, fam, in debt from uni and then fuckery. Man, just encourage them. There's easy P to be made out here. Push some packs, you get me? Push some food for man. And man will get that dough. Simple. It's not rocket science, my G.
So the young people coming up now have got to look out for people like you.
Not necessarily, because I look out for them.
Alright.
I target them. If I see a man is an easy target, man is targeting him because I know he's gonna get this P for me, and I know that he wants P.
But what's an easy target? You understand? Are you talking about any child?
Fam, no. You gotta look at the ends. You gotta look at what youths are growing up in single parent households. You gotta look at what man's environment is. You get me? What man's parents are doing. Is man's parents a crackhead? Is man's parents on food? You get me? They're the easiest targets there because they're tainted. You get me? They got no other option. You get me?
Yeah.
So they're the easiest ones to target.
I'm hearing what you're saying. So you're saying
like you're making
vulnerable.
Nah, you're making it like the way you're making it sound.
Yeah.
It's like it's a hard thing, fam. This ain't hard, you know. Any one of these youths passing, man, can approach them, fam.
Yeah, but what if they? Right. So you're saying that you could approach any youth. What, school age?
School age specifically, my G. Specifically, like them early teen ages is the best age to catch them, fam.
So having watched that short video there, we might have some people watching this at home that might be worried that this is happening to their child. What advice do you think we could give the public that are watching today?
I think talk to someone. Don't keep it to yourself. Even if you need to talk it through with a friend to start off with, it's important that the police know so that we can help you safeguard your children. And just don't shy away from it. If you think it's happening, try and approach it with your child as well. Don't make it that they've done anything wrong. Reassure them and give them that opportunity to open up. And don't be worried that if they don't. Give them time, give them space, and give them that opportunity to talk.
I think as a parent as well, it's understanding that there isn't criticism on you and your parenting, because we all think that we're doing what we can for our children, and if something goes wrong, that we have failed in some way, but we haven't. I think a lot of it is your skills as a parent, as how you respond to tension, to troubles and challenges. So I think, like Caroline say, it's about talking to someone, whoever it is that you feel comfortable with, and obviously ultimately we're here to support, help and guide too, and it's not about criminalising or pointing fingers.
And there's a lot of partner agencies out there that are willing to, especially school-based, that are willing to assist and support. So I would suggest, if they've got concerns, to start off with by approaching the schools and saying, look, we've got concerns, and there should be people within the school environment that have access and knowledge to certain things and can point them in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. We use this, as we talk about quite a lot, is the Family Information Service, which is an amazing directory on the Surrey County Council website. There are various links as well that can signpost to, depending on the issue that you're looking to address, and a lot of those support networks and partnerships are within Surrey, so they're on our doorstep, which is ideal.
There's also the NSPCC website, holds a vast amount of information for parents to access, which just might provide that little bit of reassurance, tells you the signs to spot if you have those concerns, and hopefully signpost you in the right direction.
And I think you were saying earlier today about how it could be anybody's child that's groomed into this exploitation. It could be our children as police officers. Any child, irrespective of their race, gender, class, culture, can be a victim of exploitation.
Absolutely, it's got no boundaries whatsoever.
No.
It's important as well, like I say, we just take, as parents, take any opportunity to learn what we can from each other as parents, talking to each other, and like I say, if you think something is wrong, then act on it, see what you can find out for yourself, and seek that help and guidance.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important what you say about if you think something's wrong. I think it's those situations where you just feel something's not quite right, where the hairs on the back of your neck stand out, that if you think it's not right, it probably isn't right. We know that child exploitation is a hidden crime. It goes on beneath the radar. We don't have cases where victims come forward willingly and call the police or tell their teacher, their friend, social worker, family member that they're a victim of exploitation. Often that's because they don't recognise that they're a victim. They don't recognise that they've been abused because of that grooming that's been gone on, that manipulation. Or if they come to a point where they do recognise that they're a victim of abuse, often at that point they're too scared to tell anyone, and because of threats that have been made against them or their friends or their family. So I think it's really important, like you've said, about talking to your children, and also if you think something's not quite right, then do something about it. And like you said, you can go to Family Information Service. And
as a parent, you know your child best. No professional knows your child any better than a parent.
No, absolutely. Okay, so and in the police, if we did get a case come forward to us of a child that we think's being either coerced, groomed to commit crime, or groomed into sexual activity, then we're lucky in Surrey Police, aren't we, that we've got our dedicated child exploitation missing unit. So we've got 3 units. We've got one based at Guildford, we've got one based at Staines, and we've got one based at Reigate. And as I say, these are specialist units that will investigate all cases of exploitation. They're run by detective sergeants, and they've got detective constables on there which will investigate the crime, and they've also got police officers on there that will do that essential safeguarding, that single point of contact for that child, so that child just has one officer rather than lots of different officers that they have to engage with. And I think, as we've talked, this is hidden. Victims don't recognise that they're abused, so it's really important building that relationship that police do with these children to get them to the point where they realise actually what's gone on isn't right. And I know that you in particular, Caroline, work really closely with these teams as a youth engagement officers, and perhaps especially with the children on the periphery free of exploitation, if you just
Yeah.
want to talk a bit about what you might do.
So as a youth engagement officer, we deal with young people or work with young people who are on the lower end, who we have lower concerns about. And it's just about, as you said, building that trust with that young person, trying to break down that barrier that we're not scary, we are here to help, we're not going to arrest them, and just allowing them to have that opportunity again to talk to someone. And it takes a long time. We have to meet with young people a number of times, but we do have young people that open up to us, and we have success stories of getting young children out of these situations. We also work with partner agencies, children's services, the schools, targeted youth support, and we provide that safety net around that young person. And it's not just about the young person, it's about their parents and carers, and enabling them to take on that role of safeguarding the children, and trying to spot the warning signs when perhaps they've been on that right path, we've managed to sort of get them back on the right path, and when it may veer off again. So it's just about that collective partnership working to support the children and their families.
And Saj, I know that you manage the youth engagement officers now, and you're doing a fantastic job in Surrey. Again, we're quite lucky that we've expanded the number.
Yeah, the number's doubled since the end of last year, so there was 1 per borough, there's now 2, which obviously makes Caroline's workload a little bit lighter, but it does then mean that we can start looking at other ways that we can help and support, and a lot of it with our local safer neighbourhood team, such as the team where Caroline sits within, we'll look at problem solving, and like Caroline said, it's not just that child, it's the effect it has on the rest of the family, and obviously not just perhaps what they're experiencing with exploitation, but it could be there's other factors to consider and other things that we can support with that maybe aren't as obvious as the exploitation to start off with. So it's that whole package really, and getting an idea of what more we can do, and involving the community too.
Yeah.
And it's about thinking about, it may not be your child, but it may be your child's best friend. And you can still support them in the same way that you would your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just that ripple effect. So even if we work with one child, there could be 4 others of their friends that we also need to work with, and it's just picking up. And the information that we can get from parents is vital. We need their support. We need the information that they pick up from their child's social media, from conversations they hear of them discussing over the phone, anything like that. It could be that missing piece of the jigsaw.
And I think, like you've said as well, it might not be your child, it might be children that they're related with or connected with. And I think it's also about our role in the community. So members of the public, when they're out and about in the community, as they see signs that they again feel isn't quite right, perhaps an older person, associating with children that appear to be under the influence of, alcohol, perhaps during the school day when they should be at school, and you think, why are they out and about? Why are they under the influence, of alcohol? There's concerns there. We should be doing something.
And it's a common theme amongst the school eras that people will tend to, if they are introduced to drugs or things like that, they are introduced normally quite often by somebody they know at school, or peer of one of their peers, or a sibling of a peer, and that's how it quite often will start. So it's just something to understand there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think following on from what you were saying as well, Maria, about the community, like you say, those eyes and ears. It's, and again, people mention about snitching and they don't want to be a grass, but I think we're all there to protect children, whether they're your children or your family member. We've all got that responsibility to take care of them. So to speak up if you've got any concerns. And
parents should be encouraging their child that if one of their friends they're not sure about, is to speak to them about him, and let somebody know, so they think we can look into it and see and identify if there's any issues.
Absolutely. And I think it is very difficult to identify some of those issues, and also for parents to know what is the difference between typical teenage behaviours and allowing our children to grow and to make mistakes, but what are signs of something more sinister and a child being exploited. So shall we just have a little chat about what perhaps some of the warning signs are that people should be looking out for?
It's very, in relation to drugs particularly, it's very difficult because some of the things to look out for are normal teenage behaviour, being irritable, being grumpy, hiding in their rooms and all this sort of stuff. It's normal teenage behaviour as well. When I do the talk sometimes to the schools, I say look for the extremes. So if they were a very quiet child and now all of a sudden they're very aggressive and very outward going about things, or conversely opposite, if they were a very forward child and now they're actually withdrawn within themselves. And one of the most important bits is financial. If they're suddenly appearing with lots of new things that you haven't got the money for, that sort of thing, to be aware of that.
Yeah, where they're getting the
they're
money
getting
from.
they appear with new trainers or a new phone or some sort of gadget. And where's the money come from for that?
Yeah,
that sort of
absolutely.
thing.
It's having those challenging conversations with them as well, because there's going to be conflict as soon as you challenge about how they're behaving, but being prepared for that to be an issue, you know, when you start to talk about it. But like Caroline said earlier, it's just about having those conversations, talking to them. Sometimes that behaviour change can be because they're out of their depth in a certain situation, where if there is grooming or a situation where they're being bullied, and once you get beneath the behaviour, you can understand a little bit more about the problem.
And quite often, there is nothing majorly untoward. It could be something really silly, like their best friend stopped talking to them or something. So it isn't just because their behaviour has become, they've become aware of it, doesn't mean there's actually something seriously wrong. It could be something that can be sorted out again just by talking. And
again, it's about that trust. They need to know they can trust mum and dad. That they're not going to immediately just tell the world about what's happened. And it's about the parent just realising that actually, just because we're having this conversation now, they may not open up now. And giving them that open door so that they don't think they're in trouble, and just letting them go off to their room, think about it, which they do. It may appear that they don't, but they do think about it, and giving them that opportunity to come back again the next day, next week, to discuss it in more detail.
So having those bite-sized sort of conversations, letting the child go off and reflect and then come back. But we've talked a little bit about the warning signs. So we've said about, changes in behaviour and coming back with unexplained gifts, unexplained goods that you can't account for. You mentioned mobile phones. That's a really big one for me. I think any child who has 2 mobile phones or even more, special active phones that they're actively using, we as professionals, people in jobs, often have a personal phone and their job phone. But when you've got a child that's using 2 phones, then that really is a concern. It could be that the groomer, the person that's exploited them, especially with regard to sexual exploitation, sometimes they get given a phone and they get told by the person that they perceive they're in a relationship with that they love them so much they want them to have this brand new, say, iPhone, so that they know they're safe. And they say, when I ring you, you need to answer it within 3 rings so I know you're safe out there. And the child, children believe what adults tell them, don't they? But actually it's about that person exploiting them and having control over them so they know exactly where they are at all times. And with children that are groomed into perhaps drug dealing, that they often get given a phone for those drug deals, that burner phone to make those deals with. So it's a real warning sign.
They'll be enticed in with, say, new trainers or new watch or something like that to entice them in, and they'll be given a new phone, say, oh, this is a nice new phone, if I can contact you on it any time, and it'll be leading into, oh, by the way, can you do us a favour and pick this up and take this to there, and vice versa. It's controlling. It's managing and controlling them.
And it's not only the physical gifts, it's I'll give you free cannabis. They've recognised that this child is addicted to cannabis. It costs them nothing to give them £10 of cannabis. If they go and deal this, and they'll make £100. So it's about recognising if their cannabis usage has gone up as well, which may go on to affect mood and irritability as well.
So we said about the drugs, the cannabis, the mobile phones, the unexplained goods, changes in behaviour. Are there any other signs that you can think of that we should be looking out for, or members of the public should be looking out for?
New friendships.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah. New people, regardless of age. And I think for children growing up today, their boundary and their social boundary isn't what it was when we were small, like your road or your school. Now social media has just opened it up. So there are no boundaries. They know each other at schools miles away. They'll speaking to people that live on the other side of the country, you know, so it's just being aware of those new friendships and just having those conversations to ask a little bit more, and you might not get your answer straight away from them, but to keep those conversations live effectively.
Yeah.
And again, it's just about not shutting them down and saying, I don't like that person, you're not to hang around with them. Sometimes it's better to keep them a bit closer, and you'll get more information about how that friendship's going and what influence they're having on your child.
Absolutely. And I know for me, a big one that comes through in the police is children going missing. There's an intrinsic link between missing and exploitation. And I think, again, for the community, you know, if a child is out and about in the daytime when clearly they should be at school, if it's, say, for example, a taxi driver's asked to pick up a child and drop them off at a hotel during school hours, you know, that's a massive safeguarding concern. That taxi driver, that hotel receptionist should be reporting that, because, you know, you wouldn't allow your child to go to one of these premises when they should be at school. So we often get children that are repeatedly going missing. The same children going missing can also be victims of exploitation. We're now going to show a short video of a victim in Surrey talking about her experiences of being child sexual exploitation.
So when I was young, I did live with my dad beforehand, and then he moved to Reading, so I moved in with my mum, and I did start taking drugs when I was young, and I have like some younger brothers and sisters and things, so my family just asked me to leave, which is definitely fair enough. I understood at that time, so that's then when I went to go in the hostel on my own. It was quite tough where I wasn't with my family, so I probably was quite vulnerable before I met him. When I first met him, we went and had cocktails with my friend, and I just remember we got really drunk, and I was only like 16 at the time, so I didn't really ever drink much alcohol, so I was really drunk, and then we got back to the hostel, and I don't really remember that night very well, but that was on that first night. That's then when he did rape me on the first night, and because I was so out of it, I didn't really know what was going on. And I just remember at the end of the night him just handing me like loads of money, and then he just left, and I was quite unsure of the situation, what was really going on, but my friend, she just said that he'll help us out and we won't really have to worry about money and things much anymore because he'll help us. My friend, she actually met him through doing like car meets with him. So he would meet up with her in the car in like a car park somewhere and just give her money, and she would give him like sexual favours and things, which I wasn't aware of at the start. I didn't know that was going on. And then he introduced her into like webcamming. He always just had this spin like, I want to help you. So I thought, oh, okay, he's doing a nice thing. He doesn't want her to be a prostitute anymore, that she won't have to meet men. It will just be behind like a computer screen. And I helped her like a couple of times, like over a couple of days, just sitting on the webcam, we're just talking. It was quite harmless. I just thought, oh, okay. And she said that we'd get like so much money, like per like call, like every chat and things like that. So we're just having a bit of a laugh, just me and her at first. And then we had some money and everything was okay, so we didn't have to worry about it too much. But it was then when I moved from that hostel to a different hostel, that's then when he gave me like a computer and he asked me if I wanted to webcam as well. And he just always mentioned that like I'd never have to meet anyone, they would never hurt me, and he just made that so clear. Every day I would go on the webcam. It's normally between like the hours of like 7 p.m. till like 4 in the morning. That was normally like the shift. So as soon as I'd done that, I would normally work out like by every chat I've had, like how much money I've roughly made. I didn't ever do that at the start. I just said next day, like, how much have I made, Jason? And then he would tell me. But then I realised that what he was saying to what I thought it was slightly different. So then I started like making sure of like my calculations. Then I would tell him, okay, this is what I think I've made. He'd always be like, no, that's not what you've made. I've done the calculations. This is what you've made. So I was always short. Like I was always finding, I was asking for like £5 or £7. And I was thinking in my head, like I've definitely sat like for a whole week and I've done like a good, like quite a few shifts. So why have I not made as much money as I thought? Like when I met Jason, I thought he was actually my boyfriend. So he made the relationship sound like we were boyfriend and girlfriend, and we would go out and obviously we would have sex and things like that. So we would start having sex at first, and then he would then bring out his camera. And he would always say at first it was for his like own purposes for when he gets home and things like that. But that it was then when he started making the videos more often and then putting them online that the videos started to get a lot worse. Like he would actually start hurting me. And then I asked him after a video, like, why was that? Like, why did you hurt me so bad? And he was like, it's just for the videos. It's just for the videos. Like, I love you. I don't think I want to harm you or anything. But it was just one point when he gave me like loads of drugs, and I just remember my eyes starting rolling back, and I just didn't really know what was going on. And he started like hitting me in the face and slapping me and spitting on me. That's then when I thought, actually, this isn't for love. Like he's just doing this for the like video purposes.
So sadly, that just shows us what impact this abuse has on children and young people, and how entrapped they can get to being exploited. And I think that's why it's so important, I'm sure you'd all agree, that we have these conversations, because obviously we know it is happening and it is hidden, and you know, victims, as we've said, don't often come forward. So we really need to be having these conversations and looking out for these warning signs. So now we're going to come on to some questions. We've got some questions from people that have been watching this. So panel, as a parent, what can you do if you have concerns with your child's school?
I think this is a conversation we have quite a lot, obviously in Caroline's world, working a lot in schools. If you've got a concern with a school, is the first instance to go and speak with them, you know, whether it's your child's tutor, their head of year, head of college, or, you know, in every school has a safeguarding lead. Every school on their website will have their policies on bullying, online contents, and also on their websites will have who to contact. Yeah. So in the first instance, I think it's vitally important that you have those conversations with the people that can help you, and that is the school in that instance.
Yeah, as Emmy said, it's just about that communication and not seeing them as a barrier. It's about working together with the interest of your child at the centre of it. There's obviously procedures that you can go through if you're unhappy with how the school deal with something, going through to the governors. The police are here, but we're not here just because you didn't get the right answer from the school. But we will support you and guide you if needed.
Okay. And then Kathy on Facebook asked, what are the youngest ages that children are being targeted?
It's whatever really is that the targets are available. It could well be, mostly it's for drugs related, it's probably teenagers, because they're more free to move about and a bit more mobility. If you get less under that sort of age, then they tend to be more in the control of the parents all the time. So I would say, yeah, certainly for drugs, teenagers, and maybe a little bit less, but I'm sure.
I think we're seeing probably victims as young as 9, and I think it very much depends on the child, you know, their physical appearance, their maturity. You know, children are different and have got access to a different level of knowledge than they did a long time ago. So you can have a 9-year-old that's really streetwise and a 9-year-old that, you know, still likes their home comforts and is still very, very much acting as they should at their age. So it's just not ruling out that it can happen at any age. I think at primary as well, you've got that extra layer of like wraparound care, which obviously changes sometimes when they go to secondary. So
the transition from primary to secondary can be a very scary moment for parents and children. So that's particularly a time to perhaps look out for those signs.
And that's what the exploiters know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where they will play on sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're going from a closed environment almost to somewhere where you may well be going to and from school now on your own or with friends,
Yeah.
as opposed to with your parents
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. And the exploiters know this and realise this and will play on it.
Yeah, you've got more freedom, haven't you, children, when you allow them more freedom when they go to
Yeah.
secondary school. They're getting to school on their own often, perhaps walking to the bus,
Yeah.
and perhaps staying late if they've got clubs and then coming home later. So there is that sort of opportunity for somebody to
Yeah.
exploit them. So it's just being aware of those.
And you want them to be safe, and you
Yeah.
want them to be able to mature
Yeah.
and learn for themselves, but at the same time it's doing it in that safe manner and having those conversations and working out with them how they're going to get themselves out of a difficult situation if they find themselves out of their depth.
What's their safety plan?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where phones come in useful as well.
Yeah.
We've sort of talked about, dangers of, children playing with their phone in their bedroom and being groomed online, but actually phones can be a real safeguarding measure as well, can't they? So we know that they are.
And it's
they
not
are
just
safe.
parents and exploiters and schools that can be a part of this. General members of the public.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite often driving around when schools are closing down and all that, and the children are out or driving past a park. If you notice something there untoward,
Yeah.
a lot of kids hanging around a car, something that looks a bit odd,
Yeah.
unusual.
Yeah.
Then that sort of thing, take the details and just let somebody know that
Yeah.
you're just not sure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Michelle comments on Facebook, a lot of the youth clubs for teenagers has closed, so there's not much for young people to do.
I think in lockdown, obviously, it has been very difficult to know what to do for children, and we saw less of those face-to-face groups, but they are restarting. I know during the summer holidays, there's a lot of work that's gone in with leisure centres. A lot of sports clubs have opened their doors to try and do more for children, and also some of the Surrey clubs have reopened, and those support groups. And if you look on the Surrey County Council website, Surrey clubs as well online, and ultimately the Family Information Service again, look on there and it'll give you details of youth clubs. But it's just reaching out and looking on your local borough and Surrey County Council website would be my advice. But they're definitely open and they're there.
And they want to help.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Sure. And I think that Family Information Service, I know we keep plugging it, honestly, we're not getting paid to plug it, but they're like a one-stop shop. So there's so many different websites out there, aren't there? We've talked about, NSPCC, CEOP, the Child Exploitation Online Protection Centre, there's Think You Know, but the Family Information Service is sort of like that one-stop shop to go to for advice for members of the public, family, for professionals. It's a really good site to go to. So Daniel on Facebook says, what can parents do to make sure children are safe online and reduce the risks?
So it's about security settings, making sure they're set to high so that they can only have people that they know, and for you to review the friend list. I know of young people who've got 1,000 friends on their Facebook or their TikTok or their Snapchat. They don't know 1,000 people. And it's about you going through it with them, sifting through and just recognising that actually, no, I've never met that person face to face, so they need to go. They don't need access to my life. Knowing your child's passwords. And again, it's one of those things that you need to do from the start. Is just saying, this is an open thing that we're doing together. You will do it the majority of the time, but I have to have that ability to review what's going on in your social media accounts. So they're two of the main things. And again, it just comes back to those conversations and keeping that communication going.
I think it's really important what you said about knowing their sort of passwords, and I know you say it might make you feel a bit uncomfortable when you're prying, but I think especially when they're younger. I remember a case in Surrey of a child who was 11 and the parent wanted to use her phone, and as soon as she asked to use her phone, she sort of saw the concern on her daughter's face that her parent was going to look at it, and when she did go into her phone, found some really concerning messages on there. So I think, especially when they're younger, sometimes we do just have to have that extra sort of level of security to make sure our children are safe.
I think it's not just the sites they're looking at, or like say the social media platforms, and sometimes it's how they're talking to their friends as well, making sure that the conversations they're having are appropriate with the people that actually are their friends, making sure that language that they're using is appropriate, that you would use in your family setting, and using that opportunity to kind of sit down and talk with them about what's appropriate and not.
Yeah.
And also reviewing their picture roll.
Yeah.
The pictures tell a big story.
Yeah.
So just having a quick sneak peek through those will often give you a good, clear idea of what activity they're getting up to, because they love a screenshot, do these kids.
Yes. So what age do you think we should start having these conversations with our children without scaring them?
It's a tricky one.
It
In
is.
my personal opinion, I think you're never too young.
Yeah.
But then that's mine.
I have conversations with my 7-year-old about safe usage of the internet, and he plays games, but it's made very clear he plays against himself and not anyone else live. So it's just putting those simple things in place from an early stage. And then as they get older, again, you know your child and you know what language and terminology they will understand. So it's just escalating those conversations as they go through their childhood.
Yeah. I think it's never too late. Like I say, we talk about doing it early, but if you haven't, it's never too late to start. I think it's really important.
And if you look at just from the edibles aspect of it, these products are being made and advertised and promoted to look like normal sweets that a very young child wouldn't think twice about taking. And so they're promoting it at an age where you could go down to 5 or 6 year olds that would be eating those sort of sweets. So that's something. How long's a piece of string, really? Yeah. It really depends on the circumstances of the individual sometimes, and their circumstances.
Yeah.
And sorry.
No.
I was going to say it's about healthy friendships. You might not go and speak to your 9-year-old about drugs and exploitation, but it's having those conversations about appropriate relationships. And what's acceptable behaviour, and how they should expect to be treated by their friends. And to make those choices wisely. So I think it's never too early to start with those conversations.
I think that's a really key point. And I know in Surrey we're quite lucky for our children that have been sexually exploited. We have the WISE project. They're run by the YMCA. WISE stands for What is Sexual Exploitation? And they work really closely with our child exploitation and missing units. And if we thought a child was being sexually exploited, then we might refer them to a worker from WISE. And they talk to them in the beginning all about healthy relationships, because some of these children, as we said, don't realise they're victims of abuse. They think perhaps they've consented because they've been groomed. They believe they're in a relationship. And actually, it's really important that they understand, when to say no, that you can say no at any time, and that no means no, how to say no, what you should expect in a healthy relationship and the behaviours that you should expect. And I think some of these conversations, like you say, you can have them at any age, but it's how you have them. Don't sort of, sit down and, have this really stern conversation, but it's making sure that you have them in the right environment, perhaps an environment where you make sure you're not going to be interrupted. There's not going to be other children. Driving. I think that's a great one.
To have those conversations they can't get out.
Absolutely, they're stuck in the car with you. Rather that than singing along to the radio with your awful voice, perhaps, which is what happens in our car. Or even out walking. If you've got a dog out walking, or just something the child enjoys. And again, I know with our WISE workers, they find out what the child enjoys. It might be, simply sitting and doing some artwork, or it might be going to, a McDonald's or somewhere, and then when they feel, comfortable having those conversations. And as we all know, it's really good to talk, isn't it? And I think talking about conversations in Surrey Police, we've done an awful lot of work about improving our engagement with children and young people. We've been working really, really closely with the amazing user voice and participation team and the manager Jess Clark there and her colleague Gina Marie, who's been doing some brilliant training with us, with all our uniform officers, on how to talk to children and how to engage with children. And this has been directly as a feedback from children themselves, talking about how we can improve the way we engage, because I think sometimes, and you alluded to it earlier, about our uniform and how police officers can come across, and that actually we are just human. Police make mistakes like everybody makes mistakes. And so this training that Jess and her colleague Gina Marie have been doing, as I say, is about how to talk to children, how to approach them and how to engage with them. Because I think especially with children that have perhaps got some learning difficulties or have got some, mental health issues, being approached by a police officer in uniform, radio blaring with all our equipment on, can be quite a frightening experience. And we want to improve all our contact with children, make every contact count, so that we can ensure children have the sort of best possible outcome that they can. Have you been to any of that training yet?
Yes. Yeah, no, very impactful.
And it doesn't matter with your level of service or your experience, that opportunity to learn and find out more, particularly from the children, I think it's really important.
Yeah.
And like I say, we joined this job to help and serve our communities and want to help, and so it's just trying to get that message across without putting people off.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've also been working really closely with our comms team, and we've just launched our Think Child campaign, which is all about putting children at the centre, making sure we hear the child's voice, making sure that they're at the forefront and at the centre of all our investigations, and that we really, really hear their voice about what they want to happen, rather than always making decisions for them. We know what they want to happen. So I think there's a lot of really good work going on. Mm-hmm. And I think that we all would like to say that we didn't mean to sort of scare anyone today or make anyone feel frightened, that Surrey is a really safe place to be. I know our Chief Constable Gavin Stephens is really, really committed to making sure that Surrey is not only a safe place, but actually it feels safe. Yeah. And I think that's really important as well, isn't it, for our children and young people. So thank you very much for everybody that's joined today, and thank you for the questions. You can carry on, obviously, putting questions in the chat box, and then at any time over the next few days, then we'll be able to go to those and answer those questions. If you need any extra support, as we've said, there are those various websites that we've talked about. The Family Information Centre, NSPCC, Think You Know, Childline, and there's obviously Surrey Police that you can come to, and for partner agencies as well, we have the single point of access, the SPA, that they can go to for advice as well. Thank you.
Back to Surrey Dog School. This is Police Dog Lacey. We hope you've enjoyed the last 10 weeks that we've had with you on Surrey Police Live. We've introduced you to our kennels, to some of the operational work that has taken place. We're now going to have a slight break for filming, and we'll report back in autumn where we're going to do a whole dog special. You can see our pawsome friends again in that particular special in the autumn. Please let us know what you want. Thank you, Lacey, you've been a star.